Morning. It's Friday, October the 4th, 2024. I will now call this meeting to order. At this time, we will have, okay, wait. Let me make sure we got the right orders in the pledge of allegiance first. Well, we'll do I did part of it. Joe, rise with me for pledge of allegiance. Oh, it is over. We move around this room. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one against indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have roll call. Good morning, commissioners. Marshawn. Meg. Yeah. We have to do a this morning. Wormsley is not here yet. Suber.
Here.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley. Here. Chair Young. Present. Thank you. We do have a quorum and ex officio members. Is there anyone on from Caltrans? Is there anyone on from SJRRC?
Diane Nguyen, present from SJRRC.
Sorry, this is Tom Dumas with Caltrans.
Good morning, thank you. And anyone on from SJRRC?
Good morning, Ken Baxter, RTD.
Good morning, and Stan Paul.
Mayor Suze Wallen, good morning. If everyone can speak directly into their microphone, those that do, I can hear. Those that don't, it's really difficult to hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wallen. We don't have direct mics, but we will try to talk loudly.
I'm thinking it was the people that are remote. Their volume was a little bit lower.
I think you will move on to public comment at this time. Persons wishing to, or people who wish to address the commission on any item of interest to the public regarding where else, they'll state their name and address and make their presentation. Do we have any public comment at this time?
Thank you. We do have one, Peggy James.
In person.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Peggy James, and I live at 14751 North DeVries Road in Lodi, California. And I came to speak about the Lodi train station that they're proposing. Well, I guess it's an environmental impact report that they're gonna put up. I've been a resident there for 46 years. And I farm a vineyard in Lodi near the corner of Gilman and DeVries Road. The address is 1475 North DeVries Road. I am speaking today about the concern of the Lodi train station next to my property. I understand the project has passed the environmental impact study and is scheduled for rezoning from agricultural to commercial land in the near future. Start date possibly 2 years from now. It is planned at the end of my existing grape vineyard farmland that is currently family owned, and its development will specifically impact the property's farming capabilities and my personal quality of life. Notification of a public meeting through the local newspaper was brought about 4 years ago, but no notification has been done through the mail for the farming neighborhood. I was unaware of any of the meetings. It took place right before September 2019, followed by Zoom meetings during COVID, and no in-person public meetings have been held since. I only learned of this project by reading an editorial in a local newspaper a few weeks ago. My property is most impacted if it moves forward at this location. A paved road will exist with cars between my property and the proposed property. I have a list of concerns relative to the whole process and proposed project. The property is currently Act 40 and zoned and should not be allowed to have an urban development encroaching the farmland boundaries. The resale value will decrease substantially with the congestion and activity that this station will bring. I have an appraisal of the property, I will have an appraisal of property this fall and a year after to project of the completion. I am a single person who depends on the income from the vineyard. I will lose income due to inability to farm my land because of car emissions and ongoing road dust that will impact tonnage quality of my crops. If I did try to farm my acreage, it would require additional chemicals treatments at my expense, and I will not be liable for any damages that occur to any of the 250 cars in the parking lot. I did a count of cars traveling in front of my property at 7:30 a.m. There are 50 cars every 15 minutes, with a total of 200 cars in an hour right now. DeVries Road is active with cars as Kettleman Lane is also. With a train station projecting a parking lot with 250 cars, later 500 cars plus buses will create more traffic and impact. And I've done this count throughout the day, and at 4:30 at night, it's 50 cars in 15 minutes when the ACE train will come and go. The emissions from the vehicles would create a smog-related event in the small area. The EIR report said it could generate emissions directly or indirectly. My health issues of asthma and heart disease will adversely be affected with excess cars and train diesel emissions, as it will encroach on my personal air quality. The impact on the road conditions is quite significant. This will include traffic congestion on both Kettleman Lane and DeVries, which are only 2-lane busy roads. They are heavily traveled and back up to the current freight train and traffic going to Lodi and Stockton. The environmental impact report mentions that water quality could be compromised due to the project on page 49. This will affect my personal health and any crops. Currently, our water is required to be evaluated annually and submitted to the California Regional Water Quality Control Board. No on-site security is planned. Cameras will be used to remotely monitor activity, and local sheriff and local PD will be responsible for criminal actions and emergencies. Current response time for the sheriff is 30 minutes to 2 hours. The Lodi PD doesn't handle issues outside the city of Lodi proper. This will compromise my personal safety, as travelers might feel the need to approach my home to seek assistance. The planned structure will be 2 stories high and over rail ramp with 2 45-foot towers. This is due to the need to build above an existing main gas line installed by PG&E, which have easement rights. We are not allowed to farm near the easement at this time, but this structure will surround the easement while straddling this mammoth natural gas carrying pipeline. Daily trains will generate 24 new horn sounds that will blast the area, creating sound blight in addition to existing freight train noise that already run every 40 minutes around the clock. Also in the EIR report, it mentioned that the new passenger train service and result in the increase in ground vibrations with our homes subject to cracks. A point of interest is that an alternate approved location, Harney Lane and DeVries Road, was also proposed that would not impact as much farmland or create as much traffic congestion. Although it is not ideal, it is much safer setting for the Lodi train station. I urge you to use the property site of Kettleman Lane and DeVries, not use Kettleman Lane and DeVries, and consider the Harney Lane site. Thank you for your time.
Ms. James, I appreciate you coming in. Obviously, you made a solid point. This is you're a wonderful constituent, obviously, of the District 4 in terms of our Board of Supervisors, and I do understand you've spoken with Ms. Gehring. I'm just going to address to staff many of the issues Ms. James brought up were addressed in the EIR. She's obviously read it and understands what the alternative locations were and that there were some challenges with that as well. All I would say to you, Ms. James, is that I understand your concerns. And what I would suggest is that we actually do, the city of Lodi, through the commission and the support of Director Nguyen at SJRRC, did receive a grant to be able to look at transit options so that there would be fewer cars. We're encouraging our transit entity to develop a plan for getting people out to that particular location without the use of a car. And so that is something we're sensitive to, and I just want to make sure you're aware of that, and you certainly are invited to provide comments on that transit plan as we launch that effort, as is anyone who is impacted by the train station. It's not about having a dialogue now. I just wanted to let you know that opportunity is coming up again for you to have input. So I encourage you to be aware of that, and I'll make sure our transit staff gets your contact information and sends that to you.
So I'll be informed of the meetings.
Yes, I will make sure your name gets added to that list.
And why would there be a 250 parking lot?
Ms. James, I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt for one moment. Thank you we do appreciate your comments here for this board, but because it's not agendized, we cannot discuss it. It has gone on a bit much, but maybe afterwards, if you're still here, you can catch up with Commissioner, which is also Mayor Craig Global, and she can help you with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So at this time, do we have any other public comments?
Seeing none.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to public items for this morning. And we'll move on to the consent calendar. Do we have any commissioners wanting to pull any items for discussions, or are we good?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
It was at the same time you had to pick, so. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have to do a roll call or, okay, yeah, roll call then.
Commissioners, May,
Aye.
Union,
Yes.
Zuber,
Yes.
Mr. Craig Hensley,
Yes.
Chair Young.
Yeah.
Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to our fourth item here, which is adopt the resolution approving a new schedule for the ACE service moving from ACE 10 to ACE 2. We'll have our report by Mr. Hook this morning.
Good morning, commissioners. So over the past 2 years, the passenger experience and marketing team has really formalized some great strategies to be able to focus on growing our ridership and rebuilding it. And so that's included everything from, partnering with Levi Stadium to be able to just get our name out there, as well as attract a leisure market, partnering with the Stockton Ports, and even deepening our relationship with Innovation Tri-Valley. So that way we're trying to reach as many people as possible in the communities along our route to let them know that we're here to serve them. So, along that way, we've also been analyzing, next slide. We've also been analyzing quite a bit of information just to be able to assess the overall health of the service. And that includes tracking our overall ridership as well as individual train ridership. We've been conducting onboard and market surveys to gain greater insights to what's going on from the passenger experience, as well as what the market is telling us. And then we've also, through some of our market research, kind of just become a little bit more aware of some of the new commuter trends that we're seeing, as well as getting feedback from the public. So the latter of which, in this category, we've kind of revealed or come across two things that I think are important. One is that with this new phase of, commuter trends, we have to kind of look at how we're, kind of optimizing our service. And then number two, some of the members of our community actually have a perceived concern around safety. Now, when you think about the housing growth that's happening in our backyard right now, you think about the people who moved from the Bay Area and perhaps their last perception or experience of public transit were something maybe akin to BART, where overcrowded trains, there's fare evasion, there's a concern around the unhoused population. But overall, we know that's not the ACE experience, but still it's a challenge that we have to overcome. Next slide. So when we dig into the data a little bit, what it's telling us is that one, ridership is growing. So that is a wonderful thing. So we're seeing the results that we want overall as far as the service goes. You even notice that there's a bit of a seasonality to our ridership where, we kind of peak in the spring and in the fall. So we see some normalization happening that we can start to kind of influence what's going on. But we also want to kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive into what's happening on an individual train level. Next slide. So this is a snapshot of ridership from August 2024. And what you'll see is that, for those early morning trains, the ridership is almost evenly spread across all those 4 trains. Whereas in the evening, we peak at ACE4, and then you kind of gradually have a drop off of ridership. So we really are seeing that people are moving to earlier train return times more so than anything else. Next slide. And I also wanted you to kind of have a view of the full fiscal year of ridership. So this is FY 23-24. And this is just specifically our eastbound trains. And really what's happened is a consistent trend where ACE4 continues to outperform all the other trains, and ACE10 has not really been able to move. And this is despite all of the brand awareness and advertising that we've been doing about the service, even, going after leisure partners that might encourage people to have a later return in case that was something that they were interested in. But we're really not seeing the needle move in that direction in any way or any capacity. And just to kind of add a little bit of anecdotal information, for ACE10, that's typically the train that we use for our school groups. And so in the springtime, we have lots of groups that travel with us. So for this time period, we had about 3,700 passengers that were, part of the school groups. So when you think about the regular ridership for that train, it's even lower than, what you're seeing if you were to kind of segment that population out. Next slide. Now I want to kind of shift our focus a little bit to what we've learned through some of our market research. So I'm sure, these concepts of, kind of work modalities are very common to us all now. So we understand the difference between someone who's in the office 100% of the time, someone who may go in several days a week or several times a month, versus those who are, completely remote. The latter of which has definitely had, some challenges. They present some challenges as far as growing our ridership, when people aren't or required to travel. Next slide. There's another category that I kind of want to introduce into the conversation today, and that is of the flexible commuter. And, it's something that kind of sits in between someone who's required to be in full time and someone who is hybrid. Next slide. So I think what we've learned is that through the pandemic, it introduced a new kind of approach to work-life balance. And for many of us, we've been able to take advantage of that. It's meant that we would have the flexibility to be able to take a break at some point in the workday. That might be to cook dinner, do child pickup, go to the gym, any one of those things, and then being able to hop back online later on and finish out your day. So, what we're seeing is that people are no longer doing the traditional 9 to 5 in the office anymore. The rigidity there has started to kind of soften. And so I think that's helped in some ways the employers be able to have that conversation around return to work a little differently, because what's happening is the employers have a little bit more flexibility to their workday. Next slide. Want to go into another piece of data that I thought was interesting, and I've been tracking this for the past year, but what you're seeing is some of the bridge data from the pandemic forward, but also having a snapshot of what July 2024 looked like. And like I said, I've looked at this for the past year. This has also been very consistent. What we're seeing here, if you look at that kind of teal colored line, that is July 2024. Ridership, or excuse me, travel times for peak commuters is actually getting a little bit more compacted. So they are going into the office a little bit later. They're coming home a little earlier. It's not to suggest that they're not working, a full day. It's just that they are choosing to break up their day to have some flexibility to be able to get out of the office a little earlier, maybe take care of those personal responsibilities, and then hop back online. Next slide. And then to take it a little bit further, just kind of really looking at all the information that's available to us, what you're seeing here is a fast track data. So these are the number of accounts that have been growing since January 2020, 2019. It's pretty steady. I think that, when we think about, well, where's the correlation? Well, we think about all of the toll roads that we're now seeing on highways, which means that, we've got more people driving and they want to be able to get where they need to go as expediently as possible, probably to get home as early as possible. Next slide. So, when we think about, just kind of where all of this kind of adds up and where does this really leave us? Well, in my view, I think it presents an opportunity for us to realize some additional ridership growth by changing our schedule. And so staff would like to propose shifting an underperforming train being ACE 10 to an earlier time slot ahead of ACE 4 and become ACE 2. Now, whenever we want to try to make a schedule change, we have to do so in collaboration with our partners. So that means that we can't have any conflicts with the other services like Capital Corridor or Caltrain. And then we also have to get approval from the host railroad, Union Pacific. The operations team has done the research, they've done the hard work of negotiation to be able to figure out, okay, if we were to look at having an earlier return train into Stockton, what would that look like? And so the proposed schedule that you see here today is what we've been able to bring to the table to say, what, this is what we would like to do should the commission approve it. And so, with that, I think that we would be able to get people back into the area a little earlier, almost an hour ahead of ACE 4, meaning that we can go after some of those flexible commuters, and then also maybe have an impact on the perception of safety, getting people back in the daylight hours. So I think what we're trying to do is really think through how we can take in all this data, both the qualitative and quantitative, to really come up with the solution that improves and optimizes the service overall. Next slide. Now, what we're proposing, is not something that staff is taking lightly, because we know that it will impact a demographic or a portion of our riders. And many of us sat in this very room and had some very frank discussions and challenged, opinions and ideas, really to be able to suss out what makes sense for our community of riders. And really what it came down to when we distilled all the information, it was the fact that, for ACE 10, it carries on average less than 100 riders a day. When we think about, kind of just how we can serve them differently, we thought, okay, well, could we use or, implement a bus as part of the service to be able to bring them back? And as we looked through the just different operators that we could work with, when we looked at the cost implications, all of that added up to not being able to provide something that made sense for our riders. And so even going down that path is not feasible for us. And then, when we think back to the onboard survey that we did in FY23, we got some additional data that also kind of gave us an insight, which was that, at that point in time, and we're thinking about how do we grow the ACE 10 ridership, we thought, okay, perhaps if we had a later train, that might be what the market wanted. And that was based off of some of the data or feedback that we had gotten from years prior. But it proved that that's not what people wanted. What it told us is that for those ACE 10 riders, 36% of them would just go to ACE 8. What it also told us was that, for all the respondents that we talked to, that there was interest in having an earlier train than ACE 4. So taking, all this into account, we've kind of reached that point where we have to kind of, balance out the equation and calculate the overall benefit of ridership, and so we have to make a decision. Do we make a change to our schedule that could grow the overall ridership, improve the health of our system, or do we keep things as they are and accept the fact that we have an underperforming train? So I think, what kind of tips the scale in one direction over another is the Rail Commission's responsibility. And that responsibility is to serve the greatest number of members of our community along our route. Next slide. So should the commission approve today's action, the change of the schedule would go into effect November 18th. Staff is prepared to do a complete outreach plan and unfold that, which includes surveying the ACE 10 riders, the purpose of which to be able to understand their intentions with the new schedule change. Also, if they, are going to have some other alternative means of transportation, seeing what we can do as far as educating them to be able to make sure that they can do the trips that they need to do. And then also, we would of course use all of our traditional communication channels to be able to make sure that they are, notified well in advance and that no one was left, surprised. But what you can see here is just what the schedule would look like for our riders. So, instead of people getting back at 8:50, the latest train would be 7:47. People could get back as early as 4:32 to Stockton. Next slide. So the other kind of side of that coin is that we also have to make sure that ACE2 is successful, right? And so that means promoting that train service as well. And so again, we would use all of our communication channels to be able to market this train. But also I kind of want to highlight one of the tactics that the commission approved earlier this year with the work program, which was additional funding to be able to do some out-of-home marketing and advertising as well, which means that we can do billboards. So getting those people off the freeway, they would be able to see this message as they sit in traffic to really pull them off. So those flexible riders would know that they had an alternative. We'd of course continue on with our grassroots outreach to our chambers, our stakeholders, our realtor community, who've been really great partners for us. And then, one of the other things that's really important is that we have already spoken with VTA about the shuttles at Great America. They're critical for many of our riders, and they can do this shift in the schedule to be able to meet ACE2 if the schedule is approved. Next slide. For this, there is no fiscal impact to the service. So we would be able to make all of these changes without any type of fiscal impact. And with that, I will take any questions.
All right, thank you. So this is regular, everybody actually have a voice here. So do we have?
Yeah.
Go ahead and start with Commissioner. Right.
Thank you. I really appreciated the depth of the information and the research because it did answer a number of questions I had. But just a few, and I appreciate the fact that we've been looking at this over time because it's changed. I'll just make some notes and then ask a general question, but some more specifics. So it's my understanding too that some of the technology firms are really getting back into saying, hey, we need you guys to be here physically working. But I think also that number of hours, that's up to them as employers about this is how much time we think you should be in, and working out those flexible schedules is an excellent option for them. There's also working on the train. I used to commute all the time and work for an hour and a half on my train ride back home and into the office. So you can get an 8-hour day, even if you're only spending 5 or 6 at the office. A couple just specific questions, and I think you addressed it with the VTA, coordinating on this with the bus trips, because those who connect to some of the locations, and you mentioned that with the Great America. So that took care of that question for me. 210 though versus 235, everything else is on the so is that being driven by the bus or by our other rail partners? We had to
Our other rail partners, we had to find it. We went to them with the 235 to kind of keep everything in line, but they said, okay, this is the only thing. So Nathan, the last year, had to do a little arm wrestling. But this is what he was able to negotiate.
Okay, I thought that was being driven by them. And relative to the highest ridership boarding locations, obviously ACE4 is at the top in terms of the number of riders. Do they mostly get on in San Jose, or do we see them getting on at some of the other locations? What's the highest boarding?
Great America is our highest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And cost savings. Are there actually some savings to this that we might actually experience? I know you said there was no fiscal impact, but I'm kind of curious about if you eliminate one service and you change the time, if there's any cost benefit to that?
Well, what I'm looking at, I think what we're all looking for is actual revenue growth. So not so much cost savings, but being able to really, strengthen, the revenue and fair cost recovery for the service.
Do we have any estimates yet on what we may see? We're just kind of waiting for this to happen and then we'll collect the data and cross our fingers since we're seeing it.
I think there's a little of that, where we do have to put it out in the market to really figure out what's happening. But I think that, more than anything else, the data is pointing in this direction.
Thank you. Any others?
Oh, wait, the attorney's about to do it.
We'll have our little background soundtrack.
Yeah.
That was bad.
It wasn't bad.
So, what are the challenges? So one of the challenges.
Hi.
I know whenever I travel to San Francisco. With ACE, that was always one of the challenges, just the time was going to be really burdensome. So if the data is showing that making an adjustment will help overall, that's good. But in your research that you did you see like those 100 people who were they?
What type of employees
yeah,
were they? So one is around 100 is on the high.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be as few as 40. We would have a different makeup of writers. Some were hospital workers, some were frontline workers. So it's a little bit of a mix.
Okay. So with this change, do you see it or do you vote on it temporary, kind of see how the market shows the need for later time? Is there an opportunity for that?
I don't know if we would be able to just do this on a temporary basis. I think this is something that we really have to commit to really give it a chance to perform. And then, we are going to, in the short term, going to introduce more service. That's part of the Valley Rail plan. So we know that we will have to find a place for when the service extends to the south. So, we will see some increase, but just don't know exactly where that will land yet.
Yeah, and then just the where I'm going with it is the image of the transportation. I know we're doing the train business, but when there's buses, transportation in the city, there's always a need some bus need. Don't need a vehicle for that. So I know I'm big on making sure that that type of riders available.
Yes.
So I would just say that the data is showing that it's not really going to make it, grow for us, but if we still can mitigate by adjusting the time frame, then there's still opportunity. Then I'm good with that. Just want to be correct, we're not good at.
Just to kind of, add a little bit of additional context. One of the pathways that we did consider was, okay, could we take our Route 6 bus, which is a San Joaquin operated service, to be able to cover this, ridership? Well, the challenge is while that bus serves just about all the same cities, it doesn't pick up at our stations. It's at different locations. So that's one of the ways that we can educate the market on their other options for being able to do this kind of travel.
That's good. And I think the marketing piece will be, helpful to try to get the message out. That's all.
Thank you. Any other commissioners?
There's a call.
Okay, I see.
Mermaids.
Commissioner May.
Hi.
Mermaid.
Is it okay for me to speak now?
Yes.
Great. I wasn't sure. Sorry, I heard it. I wasn't sure if you're pointing in one direction on my Zoom screen, so I'm not sure if you're pointing at another person's. It's a little hard to tell directional when you're on Zoom. But thank you for the report. I think it's a great detailed option. I know that many of our employers in Silicon Valley are doing return to work. And for us, because we have such a core in manufacturing and some of the most in the state of California, a lot of the people that I was talking to yesterday, we had a business roundtable with one of our supervisors, and during some of the public comments and questions, that was one of the concerns sometimes people have expressed is if you can't afford to live in our city and you're taking your way into work, what are some of the challenges in making sure that those are available, in particular public transit? I know that's the goal of so many of the transit agencies right now, is how to have the return to work, how to have the increase in ridership, but at the same time, hopefully that you will do some outreach. I would welcome you to come to talk to our chamber members. We have different activities that are coming up in the fall. If you ever wanted to, we have a trick or treat coming up, or trunk or treat at our city hall. And so if you're going to be promoting that, because that's apt timing right before you make the adoption. But things like that, as well as, maybe having some events that we don't have any concerts in the park, because otherwise that would have been perfect timing. But just so that people get that awareness. I know that in former life, I worked down right where your train is down in Great America. I worked for one of the big tech companies then. And so many of my colleagues back then, especially working parents, and I imagine it's just as equal challenge today, trying to get home and have some more time with the family. I think that's something that's well received, but I would encourage you to definitely do more outreach to the employer base. I know Silicon Valley Leadership, Joint Venture Silicon Valley, California Manufacturers Association, East Bay EDA, and some other ones that would really definitely benefit from the outreach. And then here in Fremont, I could be happy to connect you to our business chamber as well as some of the local business districts in particular, because you're going through Centerville Business District, and we have so much transit-oriented development. So that's a concern for me. And we also have a parking lot there so that we can better understand what our needs are as a community. And then finally, just one more push, because I have the School for the Deaf and the School for the Blind. If you could make sure to have different accessibility and also multilingual, which I think is really critical. And maybe you'll get some more seniors that also want to participate. As I'm terming out in a few weeks, someone has noted to me that I can join our senior commission because I qualify. But that is something that's always of concern or interest, because it is important. One of the things when we did our studies, your marketing studies, I noted is that in particular, you had wanted to increase some of the non-traditional riders, things like the seniors who are taking trips up to Sacramento for the day, as well as in particular also women to feel comfortable with that option. So I think that might be a viable option for some people who are making trips out for days. And you might want to look at some of the tourism bureaus along the way in the other cities to hook that in. Or I know you maybe never thought about this, even for the schools. When my kids were little, I was often the chaperone for school trips. And so therefore, having that awareness to the students, it's a heck of a lot better than having to drive 5 kids in your car. And gone are the days of the minivan. So it's better to be on your train with all the kids together and happily singing along than and with your enhanced services. I am hoping that would also encourage the fostering of our next generation of riders, which I think is really key. If students are more comfortable and conveniently engaged with your ridership, then they'll be more likely to be lifelong riders as students, as young adults, and as seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Do we have any other commissioners?
I'd like to comment, I didn't fill out a card, I wasn't expecting.
Now still go to public comment, no problem. Any other commissioners? Comments? Okay, then we'll go ahead and go to public comment, and then I'll have my comment then before we go.
Since the number 2 train is gonna be a new train, it doesn't have any set ridership. And it's close enough to 4 that you could consider doing an A and B service where you skip stops, which would shorten the trip even more. I suspect many of the people who ride 4 would love to come home even earlier, type of thing, and it would also speed up the trip, type of thing, and it would and be faster, which is then for a longer distance like this. Speed, if you went 100 miles an hour, you have to run 10 trains an hour to handle the load. It would easily overload, provide a service that's no longer available. But if you look at the Metro North train, they go 86 miles from Connecticut down to New York. They skip the first 5 or 6 stations and then start picking up people for one train, and then the next set of trains, they pick up the first 5 or 6 stations, and then they express on to New York. And so they don't stop at every station type of thing. They run a lot more trains, and they've been running them for 50 years or 60 years. And they're electrified. But it might be a consideration since you have a new train to treat it as a new kind of service. But that's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
No.
Thank you. Ben? Well, first my question. So this is just coming back, so it doesn't affect special trains and all those that you're getting in place? All right. And so I think some people still think we have Saturday service. My daughter-in-law asked for my son when he was visiting to jump on a train and just come back to Santa Clara area, like, no, we don't have Saturday service, but, it'd be nice. I'm still pushing for that to come back. I know we were like full board ahead when, 2020 came. But lastly, my comment actually is, this is like about 10 years, 15 years late. It's okay. When I worked downtown Pleasanton, when I worked in Pleasanton, for 10 years for JP Morgan, it was an option that I wanted to choose, but I could not get home at 5 something. And so this would have been a perfect one for me because I got off work right before 3. And so I just chose to sit in traffic almost 2 hours to go 30 miles to work every day. And so, yeah, I was about to lose my mind for years, but this would have been perfect. It was perfect timing. So I'm sure it's perfect for others, even that work full days and that just need to get in earlier. But that first train to get back was just too late for some. So I'm glad that this has finally been looked at, and I'm happy with all the different data points that you showed in the marketing. I just remember those signs before, you could be home, Yeah. So, you have that, you can have peace of mind or whatever the marketing would be, you just roll with us and not stop and go, because it hasn't gotten any better with so far, less cars on the road, but okay. So that's my comments. And with that, then I will entertain a moment for move.
Move to approve the resolution.
Second.
It was moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioners, May,
Aye.
Kenya,
Yes.
Zuber,
Yes.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley,
Aye.
Chair Young.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
All right, so that takes us on to item number 5. Adopt a resolution approving amendment 03 to the agreement with WSP USA Inc. for construction management services for the Stockton Road Maintenance Facility expansion. And so for that, we have Mr. Williamson and.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. So for this item, there is much more detail and depth within the staff report, but I would like to go over some highlights and some summarized information for you here this morning. The Stockton Regional Rail Maintenance Facility expansion project provides the needed capacity for the expanding service. And this is at the existing facility that's located here in Stockton. With that expansion project, the main shop is being expanded by 170 feet along track 4, which will enable the longer 8-car train set to be able to pull into the shop, the indoors closed as a whole train set. So that's an important item. Next slide, please. Also, with the expanded service, we are constructing a new park storage building, which provides over 16,000 square feet of storage area, over 700 square feet of new office space, and nearly 1,200 square feet of mechanical and accessory space. This building is independent, stands alone, and will be used to store the spare parts necessary to maintain the fleet. Next slide, please. Within the existing building, there on the second floor, there is a mezzanine area that was previous storage space that is being converted to office space. There we have created 4 private offices as well as over 3,000 square feet of new offices. Much needed. Next slide. Also, back to the exterior, there is track work associated with this project. Some of that is reconnecting the track that was during demolition was taken out to allow for the expansion and has been reconnected, as well as new track within the new shop area over the pit and trackside services for the sanitary and servicing the trucks at the S&I, servicing the train sets at the S&I. Next slide. So with this construction project, the construction management services are necessary to assist the Rail Commission staff in the oversight and administration of the construction contract. And in July of 21, the Rail Commission approved an agreement with WSP for construction management services. In May of 23, Amendment 1 was executed, which brought the construction services contract up to, equal with when we rebid this project. And when we rebid it, we added 6 months to the construction duration. So the amendment 1 was to add that time to the construction management contract, as well as incorporate some new requirements that were placed on the project for special electrical inspections. And then in July of 24, Amendment 2 was executed, which was purely a contractual time extension at no cost to bring the term of the CM contract up to December 30th of 24. And then this item for this third amendment with WSP will compensate them for the extended construction period. They will allow them to continue with their materials testing and inspection and complete the construction phase. Also, the construction management services through the closeout of the project. Next slide, please. With that, during construction, the project encountered several factors that extended the construction duration. We encountered adverse weather in 23 and also 24 that impacted the site due to the rain and the saturation of the soils and extended dry out periods that were required. Also, there were differing site conditions encountered. Some of those were some concrete foundations that were unidentified in our contract drawings, as well as some pipelines that the alignment of those pipelines were not accurately reflected, caused us time to determine the correct path and incorporate those changes into the contract. There were contractor initiated change orders that took some time to negotiate and get to a stage of approvals to allow those phases of the work to continue, as well as procurement lead times for various products. All of those things impacted the project, and the net result is the construction duration is pushed out to 34 months. So at that time, I'd like to turn it over to Miss Autumn Gowan for and stand by for questions.
Thank you, Josh. So this amendment was handled in accordance with the Rail Commission's procurement manual and will be effective upon execution by both parties, and then will expire the December 30th, 2024. And then the procurement and contract staff have reviewed and confirmed that the price is fair and reasonable and that the work is necessary. Go ahead, next slide. So this is part of the capital budget. It is in the construction support phase. The funding for this phase is coming from Prop 116, SRA, and SGR. The budget is approximately 3.3 million. And if approved today, the remaining budget will be about 69,000 for the end of the project. So that's good to have a remaining budget. Next slide, please. And with that, staff recommends approval of this amendment. I would be happy to take any questions.
Do any commissioners have any questions? Any online? Make sure that we don't. Do we have any speaker cards or anything turned in for this? Do we have anyone in the audience to speak before we close this out? All right, so I know it's almost double the time, but we can't control Mother Nature and piping underground. Gary, sorry for that. Things don't go the way that you got it laid out. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion. So move to approve.
Second.
It was moved and seconded.
Commissioners, Munoz.
Yes.
Zuber.
Yes.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Both of you. And so this moves us on to item number 6. Item number 6 is to adopt a resolution for an agreement, approving an agreement with REI Systems, Inc. for grant management software for an amount not to exceed $456,434. All right, and we will have. I don't know how you say your name, Momo.
Momo.
No, well, Momo, but I was trying to do the whole last name thing. Thank you, and Miss Gowan after, so. Thanks so much.
Good morning, Commissioners. Next slide, please.
And then this too.
So the Rail Commission is currently managing over 50 active grants on a daily basis. And this number is expected to go up in the future because we are actively applying for more grant funding programs to fully fund our capital, operational, and planning needs that we have for the agency. And we are expecting that this trend to continue for the next few years. This dramatic growth in all grant-related activities has put a lot of burden on our staff because we keep a lot of information on multiple spreadsheets. So even just to do information sharing or just a simple tracking, it's been very labor intensive, not just for my department, planning, grants and programming, but also for other departments within the organization. Next slide, please. So to streamline the process, we have released a RFP to look for a cloud-based software solution to assist us with the grants management process throughout the grant cycle. Once the grants management software is implemented, it will improve our grant compliance and consistency and efficiency in all grant-related activities. Also, this grants management software will improve the communication between planning, grants, and programming department with the other department staff, and also with regional partners, and then local, federal, and state funding partners as well. And it should also reduce errors in all the reporting and documentation requirements we have for the grants. Next slide, please. With that, I'll turn it over to Autumn.
Thank you, Momo. So the Rail Commission released an RFP in May 23, and we received 11 proposals. The list of all of the firms are on this slide. Next, please. The staff report did go into great detail, so I'll keep going over the highlights of the next one. So all 11 proposals were received and deemed responsive in meeting the RFP requirements. And based on that, this 5 firms were, and they were all scored by Rail Commission staff and Rail Commission contracted staff. And then based on those scores, 5 firms were invited for interviews. AutoScene Government Solutions, Dulles Technology Partners, MERP Systems, REI Systems, and Stack Nexus. Next slide, please. So after combining the scores from the written proposals and the interviews, staff deemed REI Systems the most responsive and responsible proposer. The Rail Commission and REI negotiated and agreed to an exact scope, price, and terms, and the agreement will be effective upon execution by both parties. Base contract amount is the $456,434 and is for 5 years with 2 one-year options. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown of the annual costs. The first year is much higher because of the implementation training that it takes for this project, and then the rest of it will be license and maintenance fees annually. Next slide, please. So the fiscal impact, these costs are associated with the budget line for professional services and the software line, and we have the funding for that. And with that, staff recommends this agreement, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, if I might, I had an oversight on items 6 and 7. They would be regular and special voting members for both of those. I'd just like to catch that now. Thank you.
Thank you. So commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I think I may have the answer, but I'm just gonna ask the question anyway. Because this is related to grants and our management of the grants, is this cost, is it potentially allowable in any current or future grants that part of the administrative or the software needed to best administer these programs could be covered partially at least by a grant?
Yes, some grants definitely allows for administrative services as part of the grant that we can apply for. And so where possible, we have been asking for money for grants management and fiscal services and marketing as well. So we have been trying, yes.
So when we're looking at a 5-year program, it's possible if we receive a grant, we may be able to cover some of the costs in the grant that we're looking at.
It is possible. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. That's great news. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? What about online? I want to make sure.
Sure. Thank you. I just to say that as long as we plan ahead, I think it's good for us to be able to have procurement and being thoughtful and looking at upgrades and other things I'm curious, one other question that's been coming up in conversations in municipalities is also if there's any inclusion of updates of software that if it incorporates any AI or things like that. I know that's been something that we've been having as a council discussion when we looked at some of our procurement processes for software as we move forward.
So the 5-year base contract that we have with them does include the technical support from them as well. So they will be supporting us if there are any updates, and then also ongoing maintenance and then training as well.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. I know that's been the kind of the buzz lately to look at AI implementations and future of that and including that in our software. Thank you.
Okay, although Mom, I didn't quite hear the answer if AI was included in that. I know that hasn't been part of the contract. Great. But it's AI incorporated into the software. I mean, that's, I would assume that's more of a now kind of thing. AI, artificial intelligence. That was the question.
Is included?
Sorry,
This
yes,
is
that
the-
was my question.
Oh, I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
I didn't get to that either.
Yeah, me neither. I'm sorry. I thought that you meant like an upgrade. No, not
AI?
no AI in the system. Sorry about that.
Automation, but not full AI.
Okay, I was just curious because I know that some of the cities are looking at the municipalities having AI incorporated in some of our software to encourage language access or like to try to centralize some of the responses to make it easier rather than some of the phone trees people are going through right now. That's why I was just trying to figure out if anything is included. Even for education too, I think people are looking at this.
Thank you. That might be something for future consideration for our.
Especially for front facing. Yeah, this is kind of internal.
So they need direct. Real people, real communication. All right then. Thank you. Any other commissioners online? Thank you. Do we have any speaker cards or anyone from the public that announced that they wanted to speak? Anyone? I don't want to miss anyone in the audience here. Okay. Then do we have any other questions or comments on this? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Move. Second.
It was moved and seconded. And this is for both regular and special voting members. So roll call, please.
Commissioners, Manning,
Aye.
Nuno.
Yes.
Zuber,
Yes.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley.
Yeah.
Turnout.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. Now this takes us on to item number 7. Item number 7 is to adopt a resolution approving amendment 04 to 2 on-call agreements with Trans Systems Corporation and Mark Thomas and Company for an on-call grant writing services, increasing the cumulative compensation by $400,000. So we'll go ahead and we have the same presenters. So it's Momo.
Thank you, Chair. Next slide, please. So in April 2022, we received approval from the Rail Commission Board to execute 2 on-call grant writing contracts with Trans System Corporation and Mark Thomas and Company. Both firms have been supporting Rail Commission in applying for federal, state, and local grant funding programs. As I mentioned earlier in the earlier item, there's a significant need for us to pursue additional grant funding to secure more funding to fully fund our Valley Rail program. Valley Rail program is very essential to connect to the high-speed rail service. And in today's item, we are seeking additional $400,000 in funding for the on-call contract amendment. Next slide, please. We have executed 3 amendments in the past to increase the budget in this contract already. This is our 4th amendment to both agreements, and then it will increase the current contract amount of $1.1 million by $400,000 for a new not to exceed amount of $1.5 million. I am very aware that this is a lot of money that we are asking. So in the next slide, if you can go to the next slide, I put together a table to show you the progress we made to date. So this table shows you the grant award, the competitive grant awards we received to date. So I started tracking this information in last September 2023, So this is just within a little over 1 year period. As you can see, we have received about $240 million already today within 1 year. And then I'm not gonna go over all the grant programs or the project that's listed, but I would like to highlight a few of them. So the first one is CMAC and SB 125. So these are the money that we received from our regional partners to really supplement our operation and capital needs. We really can't be here without their support, so we really appreciate that. I also wanted to highlight MEGA. That's a US DOT's federal program. We received $54.5 million from the federal government to fund the Madera High-Speed Rail Station project. We also received $80 million from Caltrans and California Transportation Commission for the same project. So just for those two programs alone, we received $134.5 million. And then I also wanted to highlight the RAISE grant at the bottom for North Lathrop Transfer Station for $29 million. I did not include it in the total because we didn't receive the award, but the project was recognized as a project of merit, which means that it automatically moved to consideration for award for next year's RAISE grant application. So hopefully this shows you that we are making the best use of the money that you have approved in the past, and then we will continue to do so in the future as well to aggressively pursue more funding for our program. With that, I'll hand it over to Autumn.
Thank you, Momo. So the amendments were handled in accordance with the procurement manual, excuse me, and they will be effective upon execution by both parties and expire April 2027, which is when the contract overall expires. Procurement contract staff reviewed and confirmed the price is fair and reasonable, and that the work is necessary, as Momo just showed in the last slide. Next slide, please. So this amendment is funded by PTA funding and will increase the amount in the budget in the professional services general line, and we would be happy to take any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments?
I'll make a comment. Thank
Yeah,
you. So just, I think it's very beneficial to show the amount of money that is coming in to show, because I know a lot of times numbers are large, but if the benefits we're getting are larger, that's well good investment. So with the Madera ones, just because I'm curious with the high-speed rail, I know sometimes I drive down Fresno, I see some of the bridge or even some of the work being done. Where is that money right now? Where is it being invested to? You know, the money that's been
Awarded. Oh, we just got the award. So we haven't started expending it yet, but the money is good for all phases of Madera High-Speed Rail Station project. So environmental, because we would have to do NEPA since MEGA is a federal grant. And then also it can fund the design, right of way, and construction.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could put a little visibility on that, Commissioner Zuber asked a question related to some of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority efforts. Remember, the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority contracts with you to provide the staff for their effort. And so the Madera project at one time was under High-Speed Rail Authority's purview. And as their needs to deliver their bigger program keep impounding on them, they asked the JPA, could you take on the Madera High-Speed Rail Station? We'll design the through running tracks and all the electrification, but the station itself, could the JPA take that project on? So that those monies were pursued as the JPA's part of this consultant contract, because it's a tag team effort. Most of our firms, similar to shared staff, if the scope is applicable to both Rail Commission and the Joint Powers Authority, they're shared as well, and then they're paid for separately. But you'll see some of these projects you may not recognize as, hey, we don't talk about those in here. That is true because you're the managing agency for the bigger Joint Powers Authority and manage their projects and their contractors as well.
Thanks for the additional insight.
Thank you, Commissioner Craig Hensley.
Yeah, just one comment. Mama, thanks to you and your staff for finding these alternatives. It costs money to raise money, so I never have a real challenge with that, particularly with the results. And I would just indicate that as different local jurisdictions, as part of the Rail Commission, we benefit because the fact of the matter is you're getting funds that pass through to us. We don't have to necessarily write the grants, or we do have to write the grants as we have done with our transit plan through the sustainability award. We benefit from what you've already gone through and learned. So I appreciate that greatly, particularly since smaller municipalities just don't even have grant writing staff. So thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioners online? All right, seeing none, then any public comment on this? Thank you. Thank you for the whole presentation and the breakdown, because I would ask that one question, but I love that you anticipate these things. And so it's really good. It's something hard to get at a local level for me. To be able to show the benefit of, you know, these different cost things, because it does have a greater benefit. And so we appreciate it. I know all of us do. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll entertain a motion then. This is special and regular voting members.
Second.
Was moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioners, May,
Aye.
Nuno,
Yes.
Duber,
Yes.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley.
Yes.
Terry Hatton.
Yes, thank you. That takes to item number 8. And that is to adopt a resolution approving amendment 12 to the agreement with HDR Engineering, Inc. for project development services for the Stockton Diamond Grade Separation Project. And with us, we have Ms. Gowan. Ms. Gowan is on second string again, but we have Ms. Freeman up front now. All right.
Good morning. I'd just like to start by kind of introducing myself. I'm Matt Freeman. I'm the project manager for the Stockton Diamond. As many of you are, oh, let me go to here. There's, oh, we both did it at the same time. Are you, okay. As many of you are already aware, the existing Stockton Diamond is the most congested ag grade rail-to-rail crossing in the state of California. This project at its core will grade separate this crossing by having the 2 mainline Union Pacific Railroad tracks fly over the 2 mainline BNSF tracks and unlock the bottleneck that is currently at that crossing and paving the way for the future service expansion that is envisioned by the Valley Rail program. This project is coming to an important, oh, do we need to?
Touch what's happening with that one, because this is the one that
This
we're.
is all right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. This project is coming to an important juncture where we move towards obtaining the final design approvals from the jurisdictions, and we document some of the minor changes that have occurred to the environmental documents from when they were originally approved. And this will importantly allow the project to start major construction in 2025. Oops, I think we both hit it again. Sorry, are you moving it or? Okay. The Rail Commission previously approved 11 amendments to the plans, specifications, and estimates phase for the Stockton Diamond project. The staff report provides some additional details about the milestones that have been achieved and the background. But one of the things that we wanted to highlight, which is a good news story, is that back in July, we did successfully partner with the city of Stockton and obtained a grant for the sewer upsizing project, which will upgrade some of the sewer lines across the Stockton Diamond. And we're working towards implementing them, which is part of this item. As is common with these large projects, there are a number of items that need to be implemented into the design in order to obtain the necessary approvals from the stakeholders to get the funding allocations and allow us to move into construction, but were unanticipated when the design commenced in 2020. These include city betterments that we partnered with the city of Stockton on, like the sewer upsizing grant that I just mentioned. Modifications to not include the future MLK widening project underpass. Additional conduits for the traffic signal interconnections for some of the grade crossings, and the corresponding expedited approvals to keep our project on schedule, which are highlighted in tasks 1 and 3 on the screen. There are also elements that have necessitated changes due to design progression. Submittals to UPRR for retaining walls. NEPA reevaluation with NOAA at the Mormon Slough. Additional coordination and some middle steps related to the oversight from Caltrans and FRA related to our federal funding. In addition, we've also recently identified some existing tenants on UPRR property, which we now need to relocate to make way for the project, which are all identified in task 2 on the screen. These steps and activities are very schedule critical and precede some of the additional items that will be coming back to this board for approval on in the coming months. Due to this, we issued an LNTP to HDR in August to allow them to start on these activities so that the project would not be delayed. And this action today is for the overall authorization for these same activities.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so the amendment was handled the same with all the other one, in accordance to the procurement manual. The amendment will be effective upon execution by both parties with the exception of the limited notice to proceed that was issued under Stacy's threshold. And then it shall continue until June 30th, 2027, unless extended in writing. Procurement and contract staff confirmed the price is fair and reasonable and that the additional services are also reasonable and necessary. So the fiscal impact, this contract actually covers 2 different phases of the project in our budget line. So we have PS&E, the final design, and then the right-of-way support. Funding for the final design is covered under the STIP, SB 132, and Measure K funding. That budget for that phase is about $20.9 million. If approved today, the remaining budget for that amount for that budget will be $2.1 million. For the right-of-way support, that funding is being paid for out of STIP and then SB 132 again. It has a budget of $2.6 million for that phase, and if approved, the amendment will have, with this amendment, will leave a remaining balance of $487,000 in this phase. And with that, staff recommends approval of this amendment, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Freeman. And so I guess past your text of it feels like April 1st, like April Fool, like side note, it's not the right note. But you made it through. Congratulations. So with that, any commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay, what about online? An opportunity to push that little volume. Okay, sometimes that mic just don't work when you're online. All right, so with this is regular voting members only for this item. Do we have a motion? Move to approve.
Second.
It was moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioners Nuno.
Yes.
Seaver.
Yes.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley.
Yes.
Chair Young.
Yes. Thank you. So that takes care of all of our action items so far today. So now we're on number 9, which is the rail safety month presentation. Informational, and this will be Mr. Cameron Taylor. How do you say your last name?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, you did. Great job. Morning, commissioners. I'm here to present our initiative for Rail Safety Month. Next slide. All right, so September is officially Rail Safety Month, right? And the Rail Commission proudly partners with California Operation Lifesaver, a nonprofit organization that is nationally recognized leader in rail safety education. This partnership is dedicated to educating and alerting the public about the crucial importance around our safety around railroads and rail facilities. This picture we actually took in our last emergency preparation drill on the 28th. Next slide, please. All right, so we also launched our Right Out for Rail Safety initiative. This campaign is aimed to promote rail safety and by encouraging rail partners, safety organizations, schools, other railroad employees, and the general public to wear red and to display safety messages. And the goal was to raise awareness, all right, raise awareness about the importance of safety near tracks and at the crossings. These pictures were taken recently with our staff from our Railmates facility and here in the lobby with our customer service staff, as you can see here. Next slide. All right, so the marketing team also collaborated with the Lincoln Center for an outreach events. Okay, press play on the video for me here real quick. All right, so I put a picture because they had a shorter video of that.
But the goal is to engage the public, raise awareness, and provide important information about rail safety. I don't know if you guys been to the Lincoln Center across from Midley's. It's that display area right in the middle next to Jamba Juice. As you walk in, you have Midley's on the left. There's a little display area that we had set up through the whole month of September. All right, next slide. Okay, so this year we also collaborated with TASI to organize a comprehensive joint emergency response and train our local emergency responders and agency staff in safety drills. This valuable initiative provided essential training and skill development opportunities, enabling our responders, onboard staff to effectively and confidently manage real life emergencies. And these are some of the pictures from the emergency preparation drill here on the 28th. Next slide. All right, so this specialized training program immerses emergency responders in realistic scenarios, enhancing their coordination and preparedness to respond to real life incidents. It also equips them with crucial knowledge about train safety, specific signage, while providing essential contacts near the railroad and swift and effective response. Additionally, we used all the actors as our onboard staff, so they can play the actors, see it in real life, to see the emergency responders come on the train for these types of emergencies and what they can do to better respond, to help them respond to these types of emergencies. All right, next slide. All right, so the Rail Commission will conduct emergency preparation drills with emergency responders along our current route and our future corridors. Staff will document these simulations, associate the pre and post activities to assess the response effectiveness. This evaluation will enhance future training programs and up our standard operating procedures, and we'll also share with their transit partners. Next slide. There's no fiscal impact or anything like that, but any recommendations like that. But I am open for any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments? Okay, what about online?
Nope.
Well, we thank you for the information. Thank you. All right, that brings us to board member comments. Do we have any comments from our board today? I'll start with Vice Chair.
Thank you. Just a couple of things to note. October 23rd is State of the City for the City of Lodi, and I already know that we will have representatives there. Because we're doing it in the City of Lodi this year at Hutchins Street Square, we do have more space. So I'd encourage us to have a table by the Rail Commission to provide materials, and very much appreciate the fact that Tamika and Megan are going to be working with the Lodi Unified School District and have allowed for me to participate in that, because I think getting information out about our training program for those who are looking at rail as an option for their future is a good place to have some of that information, because this is focused very much so on the business community and its partnership with the city as part of the State of the City. So appreciate that. And that's about it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Yeah. Okay, what about any commissioners online? Okay.
Chair Young, are you talking about ex officio members?
Not yet. I will get to the ex officials in a second. So let's make sure any other commissioners. Well, I do have one thing. So I want to just thank ACE as well as the Selma Kings for being a part of the 4th annual Tracy Connects that was at Lincoln Park on this past, well, not that long ago, on the 21st of September. It was great to be there. And so actually it won't be to the 22nd of this month where we're actually giving out the check presentation. So it's like a little part 2 to celebrate the beneficiaries of that particular event. Our focus was on emotional wellness, self-care. And I had to be reminded of our theme as it was leading up to that part, that I was not doing self-care for myself, but have to keep it in mind that we do need to take care of ourselves no matter how busy our schedules get. And so congratulations on the upcoming State of the City. ACE was there for ours, and I truly appreciate that as I come to nearing the end of my 12-year term on our Tracy City Council. We moved past the first step of acceptance of a gift that I will be presenting to the city of Tracy, and that is a wall commemorating all the mayors that started off as presidents, 1910 to current, and for future, as well as what's different from mine that I found in other city halls is that we're going to have a plaque as well of all the trustees / council members since 1910, which is 97 so far, and 41 individuals for the mayor for that fact and purpose. And so hopefully that will be revealed sometime this month or the beginning of next month. And so I will let you all know. I'm really excited about that. It took a lot of research, and it started from my state of the city when I was really trying to work on the history of Tracy and had to do the research myself. And then I had an intern come in and help me continue the work of that too. It's a lot of cross-checking, and when you start reading old newspapers, quite interesting the things you find, but here we are. And so I'm glad that we're making progress, and I'm glad that for our 25th anniversary of ACE, as we continue to document things along the way. So it's much easier as you look back, because history definitely repeats itself if you don't know, especially in negative ways sometimes. So it's important that we continue to collect that as we go forward. So those are my comments to close up, commissioners, and we'll wait for the train for just. And then we will have our ex officio comments. And so we'll go ahead and swing since you already asked, and then we'll back up to Stan Cox. So go ahead, Ms. Wynn from SJ Cox.
Thank you, Chair Young and commissioners and members of the public. I was just excited to share a couple of things. One, last month, the San Joaquin Council of Governments, a couple of our board members and I represented the San Joaquin COG at the Valley Voice Washington, D.C. trip. For those of you who are not familiar with Valley Voice, it is a delegation that includes 8 regional transportation planning agencies throughout the San Joaquin Valley, as well as the Air District and the San Joaquin JPA. It is an advocacy effort where we have a legislative agenda and a suite of projects that we are backing to find money for. One of the legislative policy pieces of Valley Voice is to enhance multimodal connectivity and reduce carbon emissions and invest in sustainable, resilient projects that recognize environmental justice. In the suite of projects that the Valley Voice delegation backed, it included the Stockton Diamond Grade project, the Ceres Turlock double tracking, Valley Rail expansion, and the Rail Academy. So we are hopeful that our meetings with congressional members throughout the Valley, with White House staff, with policy advisors, and executive staff at Federal Railroad Administration will make a connection here and come back in terms of positive results in legislation, in policies, and of course in funding for much needed projects in the San Joaquin Valley. The other thing I wanted to share, Chair Young and commissioners, is that the San Joaquin Council of Governments Board will be looking at releasing a call for projects this month at their October meeting. And the call for projects will be for a program that was referenced earlier in one of the presentations. It's called the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. The acronym is CMAQ. We pronounce it CMAQ. And the key thing with the CMAQ program, which has funded, as noted earlier, rail projects with this agency, the key and actually paramount criteria to get CMAQ funds is a qualitative and quantitative process where each project has to showcase air quality benefits. And only the highest projects that have the best air quality benefits among the projects we receive will get funding in this program. And in our experience, the $28 million that the Council of Governments Board will be looking at releasing in the call for projects, we tend to get double or triple the amount of applications toward that amount. So it is a very competitive process, and that is a good thing. It will result in what I believe selecting the highest quality, the highest air quality beneficial projects for San Joaquin region. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we will have ex officio comments from Stan Cox.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for all of your work. I really appreciate it. Stan Cog was also represented with Valley Voice in Washington, D.C., but I have no other comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wallen. At this time, we have SJRTD.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and all others. We are very pleased to announce RTD's grand reveal of its new hydrogen fuel cell electric bus fleet. And this includes 5 hydrogen fuel cell buses and a refueling trailer. This important occasion will occur on Wednesday, October the 23rd at 10 o'clock. It's going to be located at the Regional Transportation Center on Myrtle Street, close to Highway 99 in the Crosstown. This event represents a very significant step forward in our commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving air quality while serving our community. The unveiling will feature various key transportation leaders in the area. And that concludes my comments. I'd like to wish everybody a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baxter. Now we'll have Caltrans.
There's my button. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. I have too large of fingers. Just wanted to follow up. The month of October is Pedestrian Safety Month, and Caltrans is enhancing its pedestrian safety measures at high-risk locations. We're utilizing a one-of-a-kind, first of its kind, safety toolbox. It has 47 countermeasures to enhance pedestrian safety on the state highway system. And Caltrans investigates these areas to determine the best safety improvements they can. And the toolbox has a variety of things such as special lighting, adjustments to signs, and timing of signals to complete safety studies in areas. And if any of the cities or counties, agencies need some information on that, please reach out to me and I can make a connection for you for that. Recently, the Federal Highway Department issued a call for applications for their low carbon transportation materials program. It is intended to reimburse agencies for the incrementally higher costs of using products that are low carbon transportation materials that create lower greenhouse gases during their manufacture and help reduce the pollution. It also offers critical support for eligible transportation agencies that are providing assistance for updating and developing specifications and specific language for conducting these things. The applications are due for November 25th, and there's $800 million available for that program. Information can be found at the website grants.gov. The Caltrans, along with the state of Oregon and Washington, recently received the money from the federal government under the Biden-Harris administration for $102 million to install charging stations and hydrogen fueling stations up and down Interstate 5. It'll be building upon the years of partnership and planning that support the infrastructure for zero-emission vehicles traveling up and down the West Coast. If you'd like more information on that, that is found to be on dot.ca.gov's application. And the CTC has a local partnership program call for applications. There's $200 million available for that. Applications are due November 11th, and their applications are to provide funding for transportation improvements such as aging infrastructure, active transportation projects, transit, rail, and others that have health and safety benefits. And that conclude my comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. So at this time, this moves us on to the Executive Director's report.
All right, next slide, please. My report today will be brief. I just wanted to introduce you to one of the newest members of our capital projects team and the only staff member of our capital projects team, because you're aware we've had a seconded consultant team full-time dedicated, but we with conversations with our multiple state agency partners and federal partners, it's key that we have an internal staff person that can help coordinate those activities besides the executive director. So Colin Kemp is here today just wanted to let you see his face. He'll be making some recommendations before you in the future. I just wanted you to have the opportunity to see him now, and we welcome him. He's stepping into a whirlwind of activity that stretches up and down the state and will gobble up some of Momo's team's money. I will say, someone coined a nickname for Momo the other day, and they oh no, I'm gonna get it out. I was gonna call it Mo Money, but that's what is it?
It's Mo.
Well, money works too. Anyway, the reason he chose to sit with her and keeps getting closer and closer is that he's trying to pick her pocket. Welcome, Colin. It's nice to have you with us. And many staff have worked with Colin in his prior role at Caltrans, and he is highly regarded by our team. So welcome. You all. Now we have a lot more to go to, so that will conclude my report.
All right, well, thank you. That moves us on to we have a closed session. And so we're just going to report out.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 2 items on closed session, and I will point out, Mayor May, please participate in the items. The first closed session item is pending litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9 subsection A. It's one case, Deanna Lacey is the personal representative of the estate of Donald J. Lacey II et al. Versus the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission et al. And that case was submitted in Santa Clara County Superior Court. And the second closed session item is public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. That is one position of the executive director who is the representative employee.
Okay.
With that, we will adjourn to closed session.
Thank you. There's a key to reach out.
Looking at
Harvesting, that's fine.
Is he harvesting?
Yeah. It's more that's true.
No. Yeah.
He's showing your thing. I mean, his great too. You know the mine. So, but I mean, I know we both on the same thing. How do you do that? But it's just.
You gotta turn it first.
Yeah, mine that turn crazy.
It'll just say.
Oh, and then it just flipped me right back. Okay.
Oh, but I'm in my own spirit again. I was picking at that folder. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Here, I'm gonna go ahead and.
Are you good?
Yes.
Recording?
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, okay. So we're returning back from closed session, and now we're gonna turn it over to Ms. Janice. Council.
Thank you. Yes, 10:31, returning back from closed session. We had two items on closed session previously noted. Both items were discussion. There is no reportable action at this time on either item 13 or item 14. And with that, Madam Chair, you can adjourn the meeting.
All right, with that, our next regular meeting is November the 1st, 2024. That's exactly 1 month for my birthday. Don't forget, okay.
Yes.
Oh, then I have to join the other one.
We only need fast areas. You're in the chair.
We are adjourned and, yeah.